Yeah. All right. Let's just. All right. Give people just a minute to join us here as we get ready for our midseason check-in with the UConn beat writers. All right. I see we've got people streaming in here. So thanks everyone for tuning in and welcome back to another check-in with the UConn men's basketball beat writers. We've got pretty much the same crew, but we've got a new face in the group here. So Shreyas, why don't we give you the honors and you go first and give a quick introduction to yourself.
I guess newish. It's been a month and a half. I'm the new current beat reporter for the men's side. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, besides the COVID cancellations, of course.
Well, welcome to the beat and welcome to the panel today. Glad to have you with us today. So I think you mentioned the first thing that I wanted to talk about here, and that's what's been on everyone's mind, and that's the recent COVID surge and in the pause that it's forced UConn to be in. And I'll throw it out there, whoever wants to dive in first and give us a little overview of the situation here and where things stand, maybe even throw a percentage on if we get a game towards the end of this week. I think we've got one on schedule for Saturday, but again, it seems like that could be up in the air. So who wants to take a stab at that one?
I'll set the line at 71% and take all the action. So, it's fine. Yeah.
Well, as everyone here knows, I'm an eternal optimist. And I'm going to say that it's looking good in the sense that Dan Hurley has basically said he expects to be able to field the team for Saturday's game. He said that last week. Feels like he's going to be maybe down a player or two, but they'll be able to get at least the 7 scholarship players out there. So he was optimistic about that. Seton Hall is back playing right now. So you put those two things together, and it would seem to bode for a game on Saturday, but we all know in the next 4 or 5 days, anything could happen.
Yeah, it definitely seems like we're going through some interesting times again here when it comes to COVID. I know one of the things that's been discussed of late is the new CDC guidance. And Dave, I know you dove into this a little bit too, in terms of the 10-day versus the 5-day. Where do things stand? And ultimately, it seems like it's not necessarily up to the team to decide what they want to implement here. It's going above and beyond that.
Well, yeah, I think, like you said, the CDC guideline, a couple of leagues, I think the ACC has already adopted those same guidelines. The Big East has not yet. I think most people are expecting that college basketball in general will end up doing so. But, until that happens, you're going to see longer people being out longer when they test positive or symptomatic for COVID. So I think if that happens, if it gets cut down to the 5 days, then I suppose you just won't see as many games being canceled, hopefully.
I think what's going to be
Gavin.
interesting is, even teams that do play, like Seton Hall has been playing, but they were shorthanded, and it's kind of going to depend on when you meet a team. Providence, played Seton Hall when they're shorthanded, and so they had a little bit of a break there, and so it's going to come down to timing with a lot of these games, as far as what advantages or disadvantages you have.
I know it had been reported that prior to this, UConn had only been testing asymptomatic players. Going forward, now that they've gotten this outbreak of 9 or so cases within the team kind of out of the way, are they in the clear based on protocols heading down the stretch? Is there more testing required, or they say, hey, once we've had so many people get it that, this is it? I think it was USC who had said, Andy Enfield, who had said basically that his team was in the clear now that they've had a bit of an outbreak.
Yeah, I think Dan Hurley expects that. I think he believes or is under the impression that they will be free of, once the guys who are positive, or be free of tests for whatever it is, 90 days. I don't know what the actual number is, but that they won't have to be constantly tested, and they will somewhat be in the clear for the rest of the season. Like, this will be their only pause. I don't know if that's, biblical fact, but that's the impression he's going on.
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit. It's a little bit unclear. Didn't he kind of talk about that too? Like you said, that's what he's thinking it's going to be, but it's still kind of unclear.
Yeah. In terms of, go ahead, Dave.
No, I just going to say, that was the case last year. If you tested positive, you were not tested again for I think 90 days, I believe. That was the case. That was the situation last year. But we asked Dan about that the other day, and he had basically no comment because he wasn't. I don't know that he was 100% sure if that was the case this year.
I know one thing that's still up in the air, and we'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks, is going to be what, if any of these games, which if any of these games get rescheduled. Do you see any plans for any of these games that have already been missed to be rescheduled, or do you see any possibilities, say down the line, a UConn opponent, is unable to play? Do you see UConn dipping into the non-conferences? I know John Calipari's talked about that a little bit and saying he'll play whoever as long as his team's healthy and able to play.
I'd be surprised if they did that. I don't think that Dan Hurley necessarily has that same view, that same I don't know, instinct maybe. But I do think there are going to be some missed games. I don't think there's any way. Not there's any way. It's going to be very difficult to make up every game, every team in the league, and it's going to be a little bit similar to last year when you have uneven numbers of games being played in the league, and that's just a matter of fact, I think.
So I know it's going to be interesting times here. I don't think everyone expected it to get back to the levels we were expecting last year in terms of the pauses, but alas, here we are, and hopefully the show will go on for the UConn men's basketball team this season, because it's been a pretty decent start looking here at the halfway point of the season pretty much. And we'll go around it, and Neil, we could start with you and work our way around the clock here. What's impressed you most about this team at this point in the season?
Well, I mean, I think as what's the term? Fully constituted with a full roster, whatever, they're undefeated. I mean, they're playing when everyone is on the court. They're playing very well. They have a lot of different options. I think when Adama Sanogo is obviously in the middle, it opens up a lot of things. For some reason, they shoot so much better when he's on the floor, obviously, and he's supposedly a terrible passer. No, but I mean, we joke, but no, obviously they have a lot of options. And at the beginning of the season, it was looking like this team is probably some good two-guard play away from being great. And, Andre Jackson is not your prototypical two-guard, but he's played extremely well in spurts. And Tyrese Martin is not exactly a two-guard, but he's played very, very well. And, Jordan Hawkins, although is had some struggles, shows flashes. So I think and it's a huge if this season, as it is every season, if everyone stays healthy, if they get the full roster for the rest of the season, there's a lot of good things that could happen.
Gavin, we'll go to you here now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the 3 losses they didn't have players for, and they lost by a combined 11 points. And their bench was in those games too. Their bench didn't produce a little bit because they had to make some adjustments to the lineup with guys missing. But the bench was outscored in all 3 games. So when they've had their full lineup, Coach Hurley was saying after the Marquette game, he thinks they're going to be a monster. But who knows what going with this COVID situation. Who's going to have a full lineup for how many games? Maybe once this passes through and if the 90-day window is what they're looking at, then, maybe get to February and everything will be set. But there's still going to be some days, at least this month, that you don't know who's going to be available. So, but, I think that's good. But I think they still need some of their guys, like the veteran guys like Tyler Polley and Jalen Gaffney to play better in these situations where they might be missing guys. If they're going to keep winning, they're going to play some tough games. They've got a lot of tough games coming up. So I think they need a little bit more from some guys to kind of survive that, whatever's happening in the next few weeks.
Dave, we go to you now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, when they're fully healthy, they're maybe a top 10, top 15 or so team, capable of beating just about anybody in the country. They are undefeated when fully healthy. Now, let's not forget, I hate to be negative here, but they did beat Auburn without perhaps their best player, or at least maybe their most important player. They beat St. Bonnie's without their best player. They beat, what's the other game? Marquette was missing arguably their best player in Daryl Morcell. So injuries are happening everywhere. Look at Houston right now. I mean, a top 10, 15 type team, devastated by two huge losses and due to injury. Obviously, the COVID thing as well. But I think I agree with the other 2 guys. No doubt, when they're fully healthy and everyone's available, they're a very good team. They're certainly a threat to win the Big East this year. I think they've, I don't know if they've surprised me in anything. I mean, they They rebound very well. Offensive rebound, I think they lead the Big East. They shoot. They need to shoot a little better, although 3-point shooting isn't terrible. It's about average. I think a couple of guys like Tyler Polley do need to step up and shoot a little better from three. But Tyrese Martin's maybe been a little better than I expected. RJ Cole's even been a little better than I expected. Andre Jackson has been a great rebounder. There's a lot of things. I'll stop now, but they look like a good team, no question, when fully healthy.
Sure. So I'll give you a shot on this one, and then you could also kick us off on kind of the flip side of, if you're looking to see one thing out of this team to help them become more successful in the second half of the season, what are you looking to? And then we can work back on that one too.
Okay. I guess more successful. I'd love to see some more Andre Jackson ball handling. I've been a big fan of that. I mean, we've all seen the stats. He's, the last 68 minutes or whatever, he has 2 turnovers. One of their biggest issues is inexperienced ball handling besides RJ Cole. And I love the fact that Hurley kind of said, okay, yeah, everyone's saying play Diggins. I'll just give Andre the ball and let me fix that problem a little bit. And I'm hoping to see a little more of that, because if they can use him to initiate the offense more, his NBA level athleticism will open up a lot of doors, along with really great passing ability. And, if he starts clicking, that team level that UConn is at gets so much higher offensively, and already defensively. He leads the team in rebounding. He's just this athletic monster. And Hurley seems to slowly be unleashing him with the giving him the ball and letting him handle secondary ball handling stuff, which I think is awesome.
I think that's an interesting point, because we really didn't get to see necessarily Andre Jackson at full potential last year, coming off the injuries and all. So good point there. Dave, we go to you now on something you're looking to see out of him in the second half.
Yeah, it kind of bouncing off that point, just more production from certain guys. And Tyler Polley, as I mentioned, Jalen Gaffney, guys, Akuka Cook has had some moments, but they need more production from some of these guys. The thing about the people wondering why Samson Johnson and Russell Diggins aren't playing more. I asked Dan about that prior to the Marquette game in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, and he kind of just skipped right ahead to saying, look, the seniors have to play. He wants his seniors to prove himself, and he's going to continue to give them chances to prove themselves. And obviously he sees things in practice from the younger guys that wouldn't necessarily translate well to a game against top level competition right now. So I think it's just incumbent upon some of the veteran players, some of the seniors, grad players, juniors, to play a little better than they have so far.
Gavin.
Yeah, I totally agree with David. They need more consistency from those veterans. I mean, Tyler Polley, I think all 3 losses, he might have scored maybe single digit. So when he just gives them 10 points, they have a better chance to win. I mean, you get into these grind out games in the Big East in the 60s, where every possession is really valuable. You really need him to knock down more shots. And I really like what Andre Jackson, the direction he's going in. He's like 9 points and 9 rebounds in the last 4 games he's averaged. I think he's 14 from 20 from the field during that time, and he's made like 4 threes, which we've seen him shoot before, and we always thought, oh, this kid's never going to hit threes, but now he's starting to hit threes. I'm still I think he needs to tighten up the ball handling. He still leads the team in turnovers, so he's getting better. You're right in that category, but if he can tighten up then they can, and just cut down mistakes. I mean, they just still make a few careless turnovers, especially in their guards. So they can do that a little bit, just tighten things up a lot more, I guess.
Neil, we'll let you end this one here.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Jordan Hawkins do his best Ray Allen impersonation. He's been doing his best John Starks impersonation a lot lately. And he can shoot. Everybody knows he can shoot, and he's going to make them. It's just a question of when. And I think he and the coaching staff and his teammates would like it to be Saturday or very soon. And, no, I'm kidding a lot. But, no, he's a good player, and he will bust out eventually. Just a question of it's going to be January, February, or March or next year.
I think one thing that everyone touched on a little bit and clearly is on the mind of UConn fans on social media is the play or lack thereof from the freshmen. Either of you, from having covered this team for a bit and hearing the praise for these guys coming into the season, are you surprised they haven't played as much at this point in the year, given this team in the depth they have?
I think you never count on freshmen in the Big East or any major conference. You're going to get inconsistent play. I mean, Jordan Hawkins has looked like a stud in some games, and it looked like a guy, in his first season in other games, and that's what you're going to get. And that's why you go back to relying on your veterans. I mean, Dan Hurley does really build up his kids that come into the program. I mean, the wall potential talk and all that kind of stuff. So I think that fans can get kind of carried away with some of that talk. These kids are still freshmen and going to need time, and they're not going to throw, when it comes down to it at the end of the game, they're going to have, the veterans on the court.
I'll kind of split it. I'll say I'm not surprised that Rasul has not played as much, but I am a little surprised that Sampson didn't play more, especially with the injury situation. Maybe I'll split, the two different ones. I think it's slightly two different situations, two different arguments, but in general, I think it's coaches worried about their defensive abilities being a liability while they do their best on offense and can probably contribute on offense.
David Trey's, any closing thoughts on that one?
I mean,
I agree. I'm surprised about Sampson a little bit. Like Gavin said, Dan had him, on the wall of lottery picks prior to the season, and talking about him, really building him up. And some people, myself included, wrote that this could be one of the best front courts in UConn history, and he was a part of that, I thought. And we saw him early even in like the inter-squad scrimmage. He kind of swooped in like a pterodactyl, as Dan said it. But then in his first couple of games against the low majors, he did look kind of lost out there, and especially defensively. And since then hasn't played much, so that's been a little bit of a surprise. But I think Dan kind of had hinted, and Rasul missed some time with an injury too in the preseason. And he did kind of hint that Rasul was probably sort of the one who was going to not see a whole lot of minutes regards to the backcourt this year.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to everyone wants what you can't see. It's like the same concept. Like, it could be anything. It could be a boat or whatever. But like, it's not gonna be that. I mean, like, we're not seeing these guys at practice day in, day out, so we can. We beat reporters like, oh, maybe they can start him. But obviously, it's interesting to see who Dan has in the pecking order of freshmen. Obviously, he gives Hawkins a lot of time and minutes to make it, and he's probably showing a lot of things in practice, and he's shown it in games that he deserves those minutes to make those mistakes. And hopefully by March rolling around, UConn is a much better team because of it. It's interesting who he trusts, who he doesn't trust in the freshmen, but like you guys said, there's no concept of attempting to like pretend like freshmen would come in, commit, and contribute right away.
I know a couple of the upperclassmen were mentioned already, but one guy I know is a fan favorite, and I think kind of the lifeblood of this team a bit is Isaiah Whaley. How important do you think he's been to this team this year? Because it seems like when Isaiah has gone out there and played really well, so the team's followed in his footsteps there.
Yeah, I mean, Dan likes to say that they didn't start winning until Isaiah started contributing, and he's got some evidence there. I mean, it's not about scoring points, although he's become a capable scorer, and it's not all about rebounding, but he's a terrific rebounder. And, obviously his defense is his calling card to some degree, but he can do a lot of different things and provides intangibles, I guess, spirit, energy, all that kind of stuff, which is really important in the college game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Isaiah is huge for this team. And outside of maybe Tyrese and RJ, he's right up there. I guess, he's another guy right there that he does so many things right on the court, and probably a lot of things that we don't even notice. And you talked about the word trust before. They, Coach Hurley and his teammates really trust him. And so I think he's really valuable to the team.
I'll open it up and Dave and Trace, you could take a shot at this guy. And I know everyone thought he was going to take a big step up this year, and that's Adama Sanogo. And again, he really has been the focal point when he's been healthy. Dave, did you expect him to take the jump to the level he has when he's been healthy out there this year?
Yeah, actually, I kind of did. I mean, you saw it last year in somewhat limited minutes, partially due to his foul issues. You knew that if he could kind of get that under wrap, he could be a lot more productive. You saw the low post moves, the skill level he has, the great hands. good rebounder, just a really classic kind of low post scorer with a little bit of, 10, 15-foot range as well from time to time. I really did expect him. I mean, I kind of looked at him as sort of like a first team all Big East type player, and I was a little bit surprised. I think he made honorable mention preseason, which is understandable given that he's coming off a season where I think he averaged 7 points a game and maybe wasn't on a lot of people's radars. But I expected a lot from Adama. Dan Hurley said since the summer they were going to run their offense through him. You saw when he wasn't out there how the team often struggled offensively. So honestly, I'll mark that as one I got right. I thought Adama was going to have a big year this year.
Hall of Famer, guys.
Dave, what's the stock market going to do, Dave? We need some help here.
Yeah, I can't help you on that one.
Sure. I'll throw the question with a little bit of a different spin to you out there. As we've been going through the roster here, having not watched the team as closely as maybe some of the others have since they were covering them last year, who's impressed you out there on the court during the time you've been on the beat, and maybe someone you didn't expect, or maybe it is someone you did expect to see big things from?
I mean, I've always really, really been impressed by Tyrese. He's kind of been that guy that does a little bit of everything on the court. I know it was, I think initially, it was the first or second game I was on the beat. I think they were playing, I don't know who it was, but he was basically, he let his scoring just kind of sit there. He wasn't taking bad shots. He went like 100% from the field. But he guarded the best player on the other team, did a great job there. And then you see him in the Marquette game and they give him the ball and they let him go to work in the clutch time, and he does something that RJ Cole and Sonogo have struggled with, which is make timely buckets, get to the line, make free throws in that point, even though he struggled this year a little bit with free throw shooting. He's kind of been that de facto kind of, I know everyone looks at RJ Cole as that leader and stuff like that, but I think Tyrese is that guy who, everyone really feeds off his energy. I mean, Jackson said it a bunch of times. When Tyrese is out there, they just look a completely different team. Obviously, they need everybody healthy, like we've talked about, for them to be full potential. But I think Tyrese is that engine that really drives them because he fits a lot of those holes that UConn has. And if this is not like, I guess, fake news to say, but if he is the solution to UConn's isolation and clutch time situations, UConn has solved a huge issue late in games. Because if they can give the ball to Tyrese and expect him to go to the line and make those free throws or take smart, efficient shots, which sometimes Cole struggles with and sometimes Sonogo struggles with, that's a great, great thing for UConn.
I'll throw this question to the other three and throw another little bit of a curveball at it. When you looked at UConn without Tyrese and without Adama, in some ways I felt like they missed Tyrese Martin's presence a little more than they did Adama Sonogo's. As much as they were running the offense through Sonogo a lot, it seemed like Tyrese just has so many things out there. Over that stretch, do you agree or disagree that Tyrese's absence in some ways might have been more detrimental to the team than Sonogo?
I would say defensively maybe or some other ways, but I think just Sonogo is that offensive engine that kind of drives force, that gravity that he has. And yeah, he's not amazing at passing out of the post yet, but you can see it on the court that teams have to give him attention that I think Tyrese doesn't quite have yet if he's going to get it. I'm not sure, but I mean, it depends. But I think Sonogo is just too much of too important of a player for a team that doesn't have the greatest offense out there.
I think they definitely really miss Tyrese. I mean, he's the toughest kid in the team. There's no doubt about it. And when he's out there and challenging people and banging around on it, he makes life easier for his teammates. He brings attitude and toughness, which more than anybody on that team. So they definitely miss that when he's not out on the floor. There's definitely a difference.
I'll take a 50-50 shot. I say they missed Adama much more against Providence, and they would have won that one with him. But in West Virginia, it would have been the reverse. But
yeah,
that's cheating, but that's how I do it.
I like that call, though. I like the cheating, and I agree with it. You could argue that Tyrese you could argue that he might do more overall than what Adama does. He plays really good. He plays good defense. He rebounds very well, better than Adama, really. He can score. Even the fact that he's out there playing with a soft cast on. I mean, I would imagine that's going to be somewhat even inspirational to his teammates. He's out there. He's not 100%. He may be playing in pain. He's playing in pain now, or he has been, and maybe throughout the rest of the season. But yet he's out there working as hard as anybody and playing as hard as anybody. So he was a big loss, no question. It's hard to say who's the biggest loss. I mean, if RJ Cole would be a huge loss too. But I'll go with Neil. I'll split the baby and say the PC game, they really missed Adama. West Virginia, Tyrese. That would have been more of a Tyrese type game, definitely.
You mentioned RJ Cole there, and it's a nice segue into where I wanted to go next. I know there's a lot of pressure at UConn to be that lead guard, and just looking at who's been there in the past. Oh, looks like we might have lost Gavin for a second, and hopefully he'll be back here. But in terms of RJ Cole, what have your thoughts been on him this year? And I know he had to shoulder a lot of the load when Adama and Tyrese were out, and it really all fell on his shoulders a lot offensively, especially. And Dave, I'll let you start on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think when those guys were out, no question, a lot of the load fell on his shoulders, and he and his numbers suffered. His shooting suffered. He still put up some points, but his he wasn't as efficient as he could be. But he's still not a great 3-point shooter, but he's a pretty good shooter from distance. He's obviously their best. They're kind of their only real pure point guard, other than maybe Rasul, but he's not quite ready for prime time yet. So he's so important in so many ways. I think that now that Tyrese is back, now that Adama is back, and ostensibly by Saturday, Dan was thinking that he could be close to 100%. That's going to be a big burden off the shoulders of RJ in terms of having to be the team's sort of main scorer.
Gavin, welcome back. We're talking about RJ Cole and the impact he's had on this team so far. So Neil, we go to you on this one. And any thoughts on RJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think UConn as a team gets to the line quite a bit, and RJ obviously too. But I think if this makes any sense, he still doesn't get the greatest whistle, and I think he draws contact a lot more than officials even give him credit for. And I think he has to just develop a little bit of the little Shabazz, Kemba,
the neck throw, yeah,
which the refs are always looking for anyways, but maybe sell it just a little more. I mean, I think he's very quick, he's very strong. I mean, not strong for guard, he's just strong, and can get into traffic. And yes, he has to maybe finish a little bit better around the rim, but I think he draws a lot of contact and should be getting to the line a little more.
Trace, getting to see RJ up close and personal for the first time this year. Thoughts on him and his impact?
So I've been harsh on RJ a little bit this year because RJ's that guy that's the biggest difference between the eye tests and the stats it's fascinating. I think he's a great secondary scorer. He's good out there when Snogo and Martin out there. When he's the primary offensive option, I think he takes too many inefficient, tough shots. A little bit that's just because it seems like UConn other players still are a little afraid to shoot and they're indecisive, so he's forced to do that. But I think RJ is that guy that his teammates look up to him because he's willing to take those tough shots. They don't always go in, and he's shooting below 40% from the field, which isn't great. But I think he's one of those guys that if you were to get hurt, for example, God forbid, UConn would be in much more trouble with RJ Cole hurt than a Snogo or Martin hurt because there's nobody to handle the ball, like you said, and there's nobody who takes those tough, unbalanced shots when nobody wants to take it when the shot clock is winding down. So he's one of those players that's very polarizing, and there's arguments that he's the best player in the team. There's arguments that he's the third best player in the team. I don't know what he is. It just depends on the game, but it's a lot of fun to watch to see what he is day in, day out.
Gavin, we'll give you the final thoughts on RJ Cole so far this year.
I think I think it's interesting how he's kind of emerged, with Book Night now gone. I mean, he probably was capable of doing a little bit more last year, but he kind of deferred to Book Night. When you have a star like that on the court, you tend to defer to those guys. So I think he's been great for them. I mean, his shot selection is kind of questionable sometimes, but I think he's just trying to do too much at times. But he seems to be finishing better when he drives to the basket. But I think he's been great for them.
Dave, I'll start this one with you. I know the whole mantra in the offseason with Dan Hurley and this team was 45-07. And if there's a gripe with UConn fans, that are been vocal about it a bit on social media. It's that this team struggled to close out games still this year a bit. You saw them have some difficulties down in the Bahamas. You've seen it, on and off throughout the season here. What are your thoughts on the team and their ability to close out games so far this season and take that step and win those games?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think you don't have a guy like Book Knight, who's kind of would be sort of your go-to guy down the stretch. Obviously, they played without him last year and had some success, but other guys stepped up from time to time. But ultimately, they really missed him. And when he came back, they were again a different team. Sort of maybe not having that sort of go-to guy. I mean, certainly the injuries haven't helped. You look at some of the games like the game in the Bahamas. I mean, they had that game won, and then certainly there was the Michigan State game where they had a terrible call against them. Yeah. Jordan Hawkins had a really bad. They ended up winning that game, but really bad turnover at the end of one of those games. I don't know. It's kind of a tough one. I just think maybe a lot of it stems from just the fact that they might not have sort of that Book Knight type of guy. I think Sanogo can sort of be one of those guys, even as a big, but obviously he's missed some time and hasn't been healthy for a while. So I think that's part of it.
Neil, I'll go to you on this one.
Yeah, I agree to some degree. I think part of it is that they don't have a lot of ball handlers. I mean, you have RJ Cole, but if you force the ball out of his hands, double, triple team, whatever, inbounds type stuff, they don't have a lot of natural ball handlers out there. Part of it's because they play big, and that's an advantage most of the game. They have a big lineup. They look like an NBA team sometimes. We look at all their size, but it hurts a little bit when you're playing guys, like Tyler Polley, who's has some skills, but he's not the greatest ball handler, and Tyrese is good, but maybe not great, and Andre Jackson is flashy, but maybe not the best traditional ball handler. So that can really hamper you in the final few minutes. Obviously, they've been susceptible to pressure, and have little issues there. But Dave's right; they don't have the old Jim Calhoun thumbs down play, the clear out, the give the ball to Ray Allen, everybody else get out of the way. And they don't really have that. Although RJ is probably the closest to that guy, they don't really have that this year.
Gavin, I'll give you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with those guys. They don't have guys who can break people down off the dribble. I mean, RJ can get by some people and everything, but they don't. They have a lot of standstill shooters, and in the half court, they tend to bog down a little bit, and that's at the end of game shots or last few minutes, you're not going to get fast break baskets. So I think they're still trying to figure that out, but they don't. I think Dan was saying even in the preseason, the backcourt was his biggest concern. And I think it still is, as far as taking care of the ball, able to either break down somebody off the dribble when you need a basket or at least set somebody else up for a good shot.
It seems like one of the areas that Dan Hurley's looked to improve a little bit upon it has been to play at a little bit of a faster pace. Thoughts on the pace that they've played at this year, and do you think it's, I know in KenPom stats might necessarily show they played faster. I mean, the eye test from my perspective is it seems like they have played a little bit faster, but curious to get your thoughts on the pace this team has played at this year. And Shreyas, we could start with you on that one. I know we didn't give you one on that other shot.
No worries. No, I think it's a good thing especially because if they can get as many fast break points as possible, it'd be great. Because I think like these guys have said, there isn't this go-to scorer besides maybe Sanogo that you can just give the ball to and get easy buckets. So why not alleviate that problem a little bit by playing with this faster pace and getting these fast break buckets, and especially because at the end of the day, this UConn team is just athletic across the board. They're I think number 4 in NCAA in rebounding. They're, they can all jump out of the building. So why not use that to your advantage if your disadvantage is shooting and get those fast break points, which I think is something that Hurley has recognized and done more of, which I think is awesome.
And from the guys who saw this team last year compared to this year, talking about the pace of play in the style they played at this year, any major differences or anything stick out to you?
I think they play a little faster. I mean, their best fast break is having Andre grab the rebound and taking off up the court, and that's helped a lot because he gets a ton of rebounds. But a lot in the Big East, especially now, teams know you so well, they're not going to let you run a lot. So the fast break opportunities are going to be limited.
Yeah, teams drop back. They shoot a three and they have 2 or 3 guys dropping back to sort of prevent the fast break from happening. Plus, you look at the last few opponents. Well, not Marquette, but Providence is a team that really wants to slow the pace down. They're one of the far slower pace, I believe, than UConn. West Virginia and St. Bonnie's similar. They've played some teams that really play at a slow pace. So I think that's affected it too. When Marquette came out and pressed a little bit and tried to speed things up, you saw a little bit better of a pace by UConn and certainly better results.
Neil, we'll give you the final thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan Hurley's Rhode Island teams and, most of his teams in general, I think he likes to have his lead guards up and pressing and, creating turnovers and creating pace and, getting in on the move. It's been a little tougher with the way his UConn teams have been, I guess, built, maybe not the exact right personnel he wants for that. I mean, obviously he's got all his guys in there now, so it's a little bit of a moot point. But I think he's kind of struggled with, getting what he exactly wants out of this team, I suppose.
We'll go to some lightning round questions here, which are always my favorite as we head towards the end of this session. And if anyone's got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we could try to get them throughout the rest of this here. But if you had to say a guy from last year is most improved so far this season, is there anyone that sticks out to you as that most improved guy this year? And Gavin, we could start with you.
Probably Andre Jackson. I mean, he was hurt last year a little bit, and so he didn't get to play as much. But I think he's already got 4 pounds of steal.
All right, we might have lost Gavin there. So Dave, we could go to you here on your most improved player.
Yeah, it's Andre Jackson's a good choice. You could really say Sonogo, right? I mean, he's doubled his scoring average. He's become one of the better players in the league this year. You could say Tyrese Martin. I don't want to steal everybody else's answers here, but
take them all. Take them all. It's all good.
I guess I'll say Sonogo, even though I think there was a lot of expectation that he could be this good. I think he certainly has really stepped up his production, obviously, this year and been a really good player for the most part.
Neil, we'll go to you on this one now.
Sonogo. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Trace, we'll start. Since you weren't here watching the team last year, we'll let you start with this one. If you had to say that the MVP of this team so far this season, who are you giving that to?
Ooh. I think I'm going to go with Tyrese Martin. I think he's that engine that does a little bit of everything. He's been pivotal in some of their wins, in shutting down some opponents. His teammates feed off his energy. He's been much improved. And the Marquette game really impressed me because it seemed like he could do whatever he wanted with the ball. And that's not like some mid-major team. Marquette's a pretty good team. They have a good coach. Obviously, they were missing their arguably second best or best player. So it wasn't quite a one-to-one there. But I think he's one of those players that, I feel like on the UConn team, if you give him the ball, more often than not, he'll make the right decision, which I can't say everyone else in the roster can do.
Neil, we'll let you go before Dave steals your MVP pick here.
I'll take RJ Cole. I think he's obviously their most indispensable, and I think he's down the stretch will become clear their most reliable. I don't know.
Dave, we'll go to you.
I'll go back to Sonogo just because I think that when it's all said and done, he's the most reliable offensive player they have. I think when he's healthy and he's right, which he wasn't quite back, for the Marquette game, you get him the ball down low. Good thing. He's got to be a little bit of better free throw shooter, but good things tend to happen. The other two choices, there's a lot of other choices. I'll just go with Sonogo.
All right. All right. It looks like we lost Gavin, so if we get him, we could get him back on this one. But as we head into conference play now, who would you say is the toughest matchup for UConn in the Big East? Who's going to give them the most trouble? Who do they want to avoid seeing come March at MSG? And Dave, you could start with this one.
Well, there's another multiple choice answer, but I'll try to stick to just one.
I should come to you last on these ones.
I know. I think Seton Hall has maybe perhaps the deepest, most overall talent in the league, but obviously they're down a couple of key pieces. I'm going to go with Seton Hall. I think they're almost too deep at every position when healthy, And the kid from Harvard, I forget his name off the top of my head.
Bryce Aiken.
Aiken, he's been healthy for the most part this year. The kid who's out now, the shot blocker, he's a presence defensively. I mean, he's 7'2" and just sits back there and blocks shots. Kid Kadari Richmond, who UConn was interested in the portal. Yeah, he's been very good. And of course, Jared Roden is one of the best players in the league, and I could go on and on with them. I think when healthy, they might be the biggest.
All right, Gavin, we'll go to you while you're back here. You can give your choice. We asked who the MVP of the team has been so far in this first half of the season, and then second question is who's UConn's toughest matchup in the Big East here? All right,
he's speechless.
All right, Neil, we'll go to you on your toughest matchup for UConn come Big East.
Although Dave makes a fine point as always, I will take Villanova. I think when it's all said and done, they've played such a killer schedule. Obviously, they've looked a little fallible. They look like they have some problems, and they do have some problems. But at the end of the day, they have a million shooters. They have an experienced team. They have a good coach. I think that's going to be the toughest out.
Sure, so we'll go to you on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Neil. I mean, I think Villanova is just a team. I mean, they came in projected first in the conference for a reason. Yeah, they haven't quite lived up to expectations, but I think, they have a quality coach team that, that 4 guys averaging over 10 points a game. They have a lot of shooters. I think that's going to give UConn problems come March.
All right. Do we have Gavin? Gavin, you there? Oh, Gavin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got a 2-game winning streak here on the internet.
It's over. It's over.
Just when we thought we had him. All right. Well, Gavin. There you go.
You can. Yeah, I'll just go with Villanova. I'll keep it short. They're the team to beat until
beaten.
Beats them.
Yeah, agreed there.
Until beaten.
Now that we've seen this team play a bit, and we've seen the college basketball landscape in general, I know, the expectations coming into the season where it was that UConn was going to be an NCAA tournament team. If you had to guess seed line where you could see them come March, now that you've gotten to see a little bit of their body of work, and Gavin, you could just give us a number quickly if that works.
Hold up your hand.
A seed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Neil's got a 6, but I was going to say a 6 or 7. I'll give him a 6.
All right, so it's one step up from last year. Dave?
Yeah, sorry, this is one of my. I never like this question at this time of year, but I will say I'll say 5 because I think if they can stay healthy, like I said before, I think they're, they can be a top 15 type team. So I'll say that if they remain healthy, they can get to be at least a 5 seed.
Shreyas?
Yeah, I think 5.
All right, Neil?
I'll make it unanimous-ish. I'll take 5.
All right. Now that you've had a chance to see this team play as well, if you had to take a guess and say an NCAA tournament ceiling for this team, where are you putting them? And Neil, you can start on this one.
Ceiling? I mean, it's everyone always makes a stunning run, it seems, in the NCAA tournament. There's some surprises. I mean, Syracuse loses 12 games and then, makes the Final Four. And there's been double-digit seeds now that make turns. It's hard to see them getting past the second weekend. But that being said, that's not a bad season. That'd be a great season, I think. So I guess I'll say Elite 8 is the ceiling. That would be the high.
Trace?
Yeah, I agree. I think Elite 8.
Gavin, we got you. What do you got?
Yeah,
here?
3 wins. 3 wins, I think, is a ceiling. Then I think the NCAA tournament plays out if he gets a break and go farther. But yeah, 3 wins.
Dave?
Yeah, look, we all know it all comes down to matchups and whatnot in the tournament. But I mean, if you think about it right now, like as UConn as a healthy team, how many teams are there in the country that you would say they absolutely positively could not beat? I mean, I don't think there's more than about 7 or 8 that I would say, there seems to be a sort of a certain 7 or 8 teams that have more or less separated themselves. But even though all those teams, some of them have some surprising losses. There's so much parity, so much, it's so hard to tell. I'm going to say that they could, but ultimately, I guess my answer is the same. Elite Eight is their ceiling.
All right, and we'll end this with my favorite question. I love trying to get a hot take. So, hottest take on this team heading into the rest of the season, if you had to give one, and we'll let the new guy start first. So, Shreyas, I'll give you first dibs on this one.
Hottest take. Well, I mean, I think I said my hottest take earlier. I mean, RJ Cole isn't the savior UConn fans make him out to be, but he's not bad. I think he's just a quality player. And I guess my second hot take, there's no NBA level talent right now on this team. Besides maybe Hawkins in a couple of years.
All right. We'll see what your mentions look like after this. No, I'm just kidding. Neil, we'll go to you for a hot take here down the stretch.
Andre Jackson will shockingly lead this team in 3-point percentage at the end of the season.
A cook. What about him?
That's why it's a hot take. See?
A battle between those two for the 3-point leader there. Gavin, we'll go to you now.
Andre Jackson will have 5 double-doubles for the season's over.
All right. I like it. Dave, and we'll give you the closing thoughts here.
I'm just going to be really optimistic and say UConn will not lose another game to cancellation the rest of this regular season.
Wow, that's a hot take.
It's blazing hot, and it's full of dripping with confidence.
Well, knock on all the wood that's the case there. I know fans will be happy with that. Team will be happy with it as well. And you guys will have something to do, right?
I will buy Dave that beer that I've owed him for 18 months. Yeah, it might happen.
Well, I had a 6 a.m. flight. I had a 6 a.m. flight with the Cincinnati for the Xavier game that morning, and the night before I was kind of tipped off that the game might not happen, but then again it might. And those type of scenarios are not fun. And fortunately I decided not to fly out, and it ended up being the right choice. Though of course we didn't learn that until about 5 o'clock the next day. So, yeah, that's not fun.
Because the world would have ended if you kind of let people know earlier. Yeah, that they weren't playing the game. That would have been terrible.
Neil was behind that. I think Neil was behind that cancellation because he didn't want to buy you that beer that he owes you.
Could have been.
Well, guys, as always, I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining me in the middle of the season here. This is the first time we've done this. Usually we just do pre and post, but we've got some halftime here. So thanks for joining me. We'll get the group back together at the end of the year and dive in, see if any of those hot takes happened, right? So I'll have to keep track, and we'll see how they go throughout the year. But Dave, Gavin, Shreyas, Neil, thanks so much as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.